But anyway, my name is Rick Gualtieri. Try pronouncing that three times fast. And well, I've been writing for a while. I have almost 50 books out there across horror, fantasy, action, comedy, and allegedly under a pen name doing some spicy stuff.
Ooh, that's fantastic. Now that I love meeting authors who write beyond one genre because it's so fascinating how you all can get in so many different heads and different vibes and themes. And for me, I do range, but it all stays under epic fantasy at this moment. So it still kind of ties in with a certain umbrella, but when people jump drastically, it's just wowing to me because it's so different.
Well, it's not always a good thing because one, like if you ever look at my social media, I envy authors who have like a focused message. My brain is all over the place. So like even out here on TikTok, one day I'm talking about author stuff, the next day I'm talking about my books, the next day I'm talking about cryptids. I really can't stay on on topic. I kind of go all over the place, and that's part of the reason why I write multiple genres. Is just if I stay doing the same thing, my brain just seizes up.
I get that. I get that. And I think that's one of the things is I do like some I do as I say, not as I do. I am publishing two series simultaneously. So for me, it works out because when I'm getting bored or getting stuck on one project, then I can jump into the other one. And it's kind of like almost a palate cleanser, so to
Mhm.
speak.
I mean, I do that. I do that during the day. Usually I have multiple stories in flight at a given time. So like I'll work on one in the morning and then like I'll switch to another in the afternoon because yeah, it's you're right, exactly right. It's a palate cleanser.
Well, for me, okay, let me go back to the fact that you have so many books out and so many different series. Let us know actually specific names of a couple of them and let's dive into those because I know you just gave me the little taste on genres and their
Okay.
breadth, but like
All
name
right.
a few.
So I have multiple series going, but I have two that are finished. So the first one, which is my longest series, is called The Tome of Bill, and it's horror comedy. The first book is behind me there, Bill the Vampire, up there
Ooh.
in hardback. There's 11 books in that series, and there's an ongoing sequel series to that. And it is basically um, Bram Stoker meets Twilight meets Big Bang Theory. It's this foul mouthed geek who gets bitten by a vampire, joins their world. They all hate him because, well, they're all beautiful and wonderful and like vampire. It's kind of like vampire eugenics. They only really bite beautiful people, and they kind of act. They bring him into the fold. They really just mean to like bring him in as kind of a goof and then kill him off right away. And it doesn't work out. And yeah, it's basically this dorky vampire who winds up having to try to save the world while surviving all these creatures who kind of hate him.
That is so much fun. And how many books are in that particular series? You said that's your longest one.
So there's eight main books and there's three side stories on that.
Ooh.
And I also have a so there's a spin-off series, there's a sequel series to that. It's basically it's a whole world that like
I love
started
it.
off with that series. So the book that's next to it, Second String Savior, that's actually a spin-off that I write with Ari Carr.
Fantastic. And how do you like? So I always like to ask questions when people work together as authors and do collaborations because I'm a control freak, and so that sounds again very foreign into my brain. So how do you like working together with someone else?
It can be frustrating, but at the same time, it's almost like working with an editor who's basically correcting you and telling you no and telling you to change things as you're in the middle of the story as you're writing it. So it's good because it's somebody to bounce ideas off of. Um, it's somebody to critique and criticize, but also somebody there to kind of encourage you because it kind of comes becomes like a bit of a competition. Because it's like, hey, if they wrote 2,000 words yesterday, well, I'm not going to let them outdo me. So it like motivates me to do 3,000 words today or so.
I do like that. I love challenges. I do like challenges. I am definitely a motivated person, and so I'm one of those goal-oriented people that I have 1,000 things written down, so I could just have the satisfaction of just crossing it off the list. But yeah, no, that's really cool. And when other people, I know for myself, when you create and delve so much time, energy, effort creating your own universe, your world building, it is a lot of fun to build out series and spin-off stories. Now, do you always view it from the main character, or do you use different point of views when you tell your stories or spin-offs?
All right. So I, depending on the story and the series, I switch off between first person and third person. The books behind the book, that other book, the other finished series I have, Tales of the Crypto Hunter. That's Bigfoot Hunters there. That's a horror story. That's a horror series that's told from third person. But in Bill's case, the main books from there are told in first person from Bill's perspective. However, the side stories do tend to like put other characters in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives other characters a chance to shine. So you can kind of like see what's going on with them, get their backstory, get their thoughts. Because I'm a firm believer when you're that first person is great, but it's also going to be limiting because one, you're getting really deep into a character's head, including seeing those thoughts that, well, they wouldn't want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you only see the world from their perspective. And I mean, that can be limiting because I've literally had to throw out pages upon pages of notes because I've reached a scene and I've realized that the main character wouldn't give a crap about any of this. So he would just tune this out. And as a result, it's just like, well, I guess I'm not using this research.
Fair. And that, I think that is a challenge no matter what style or how you approach telling a story. I think I was talking about a little bit last week about how first person, third person, they all have pros, they have cons, single point of view, multiple point of view, same thing, and you just have to figure out what's the best way to tell your stories. And so far I've always stuck with the third person, one point of view, but I did just write a short story in first person, and it was very weird, but it was a fun challenge to do, but to try to get outside of my typical comfort zone.
So when I do third person, I usually have multiple. The part of the reason for that is I usually want multiple points of view in a story. And I love doing that with horror because not only does it let you step into the shoes of different victims, but it also lets you step into the shoes of the monster, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be fun.
Oh yeah. And so, okay, so you have vampires, you have Bigfoot slash cryptids. So, do you have a favorite series? I know that's a horrible thing to ask someone.
I mean,
That was a cruel question, I know. I'm so sorry.
no, it's not a cruel question. I don't know if it's a favorite series. Like I have favorite books of mine. I mean, there's certain books I look at. I'm like, yeah, that one came together. I'm not really sure. I'd like consider a favorite series. I mean, Bill sells the most, so I mean, from a bill paying perspective, that's my favorite. But
Well, his name is Bill, so he pays the bills. But no, that's really cool. It is interesting. I was gonna say, I'm trying to think. I guess because the horror genre is one that people either really love or they shy away from, and that's a pity because horror can be a lot of fun.
no, I mean you're absolutely right. In fact, I have always considered the Tome of Bill to be horror comedy, but for the longest time I've marketed as urban fantasy because you're right, horror has that stigma, and people some people look at it and they're like, oh, I would never read horror, even though, I mean, if you look at like other close genres like dark fantasy and horror, they live next door to each other, if not in the same house.
Yeah, grimdark, dark fantasy, horror. They all overlap in different ways depending on the story, but yeah, and that's the thing is I was dabbling. That was my short story as well. Was a horror fantasy. I was playing with that kind of concept, and I haven't gone full horror, so that was kind of fun to dabble in that genre as well. But yeah, so you've been published for a number of years. What motivated you to start writing in the first place?
Yeah. Okay. So my writing journey is a really simple thing in that it was a bucket list item.
Yeah.
I literally just wanted to write a book just to say I had done it and then get back to my previously scheduled life. That literally was my entire thing of just saying this was the early days of when Amazon first came out with their first gen Kindle. And I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that like there were a lot of authors I was enjoying I'd never seen before, I'd never seen in the bookshops, and I realized that they were self-published. And I was like, well, they can do it. I can put one out. Nobody's gonna read it, nobody's gonna care. But hey, I can say I wrote a book and that'll be
Mm-hmm.
cool.
And then someone did read it. But no, I think that is really kind of cool. The whole self-publishing journey for everyone, and for me, I was that little child who was like, "I'm going to publish a book one day. How are you going to do it? I don't know, but it will happen," because I was super confident in myself, and it took me a longer time than I would have thought before I got around to it. But I always had in the back of my brain that one day I will publish a book. Way before I ever heard of self-publishing, so who knows? Who knows?
Well, I mean, that was the thing. I wrote a lot in college, but like the concept of becoming a published writer always just seemed like it just seemed like a path just didn't see myself going down. Okay, getting an agent, querying, doing stuff,
Yeah.
getting letters in the mail telling me I suck, all that stuff.
It does happen.
I literally figured, okay, by self-publishing, I can put it out there. Maybe one or two people will pick it up. They'll probably tell me I suck, and then that's it. No harm, no foul.
But you stuck with it.
Yes. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people out there who are more than happy to tell me that I suck. But there's also, God, how many have I sold? I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of people out there who somehow managed to entertain, which is mind blowing.
That's fantastic. And I think part of it is confidence, and part of it is learning the craft. And it takes time to learn. And so first books are first books. I say it all the time. They're not supposed to be the greatest books. If you intend to write others, if you're going to be a one and done, you better make that one amazing. But but if you're doing a lot, you want to always improve. And so yeah, well, you go back, and the first book's probably not the greatest compared to what
Oh,
you're writing right now,
let-
but
let- I'm, I'm not shy about saying that. Like, I've gone back and like re-edited all my old books to like kind of bring them up to date with like modern style, and also the fact that, well, I kind of know what I'm doing now,
Mhm.
whereas I didn't before. But I will disagree on one thing. Excuse me. Um, learning the craft of writing is a good thing because it does make your writing technically better.
Mhm.
But there's so much garbage out there with regards to other authors telling you, oh, the rules of writing, oh, don't do
Oh,
a
that's true.
prologue, oh, don't do that. It fills your head with like it. Like I found that writing is a lot less fun knowing that stuff. Even if even if like functionally and technically it's better, because in the back of my head, I always have these things going, oh, you sure you want to start your book that way? Because a lot of people say, you shouldn't do that, or, or whatnot. So in some ways, like just starting out and doing your first book and honestly having no clue what you're doing is a lot more fun because just the aspect of not knowing what you're doing, I guess, is and figuring out as you go. It's kind of fun.
It is kind of, I can see that. Yes, it is kind of fun. I'm always, I guess my point of view is, and I have not studied the craft too like deeply either, but I like the idea, and this goes from my background in art as well, is when you know the rules, you can break them, and you know why you break them. You have a reason for it, and you can also defend yourself if someone asks you why you did this very differently. Why didn't you do the 5 point arc? Because I didn't, whatever. But you learn, and I don't know. I like the challenge of learning, but I also like breaking rules.
And that's the thing. It's like all of these rules of writing that you hear. There's always exceptions to that.
Oh yeah,
And if there's exceptions to it, then it's really not a rule.
that's true.
What's
It's a
that?
rule of thumb.
Yeah, what's that phrase from Pirates of the Caribbean? It's not so much rules as guidelines.
Oh yes. You know what? There you go. You write a book on writing, and that should be the title. That would be actually. I like this title now. It's not really rules; it's guidelines. And then, oh, I like it. Anywho, but yeah. So okay. So right now you have a number of books. What are you working on currently? Is it something to add into all your series? Is it something new? What are you currently working on?
Both.
Hmm.
Something just beep.
Probably my phone.
Okay.
I'm having
I was like, alarm or something going off. All right. So actually, the answer is both. I have two books in flight right now. Actually, I have more than two, but I have two that I'm actively working on. Then I
Mhm.
have maybe like three that like I've put to the side because my brain can't wrap around them. But all right. So the newest thing I'm working on is a lit RPG, and
Ooh, fun category.
I'm serializing that. I'm maybe 30 chapters in, and maybe 20 chapters are up on Royal Road right now for people to read for free. So
Nice.
that's kind of cool. And I just hit like chapter 3 on a brand new series that I'm working on, which is another spin-off of Bill's World. That first book is Bill the Vampire, and I've been teasing for years that I want to do a story called Mike the Werewolf. And
Yes.
I finally set it up in like I introduced the characters in like the last two of the sequel series, Bill of the Dead, and now I'm spinning him off into his own book. So
That's fantastic. I love that. I feel like you could almost continue on with that kind of concept of sub-series and vampire, werewolf. I'm thinking like the classic movies. I've been into rewatching a lot of the classic, like almost black and white horror movies. So you have
well,
like the Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Creature of the Black Lagoon kind of tropes. But
like there's good and bad to doing that. Like the good is that once somebody is like in your book world, they're going to want to read like pretty much the
mhm.
entire thing. The bad though is that when you have enough books, and I think Bill's World between novellas and novels has something like 27 books in it right now. That can be intimidating for somebody to start.
That's true.
You know,
Yes.
so there is good and bad. Like I like the fact that the Crypto Hunter series is only 3 books. It's a trilogy. The other book behind me there, Hybrid of High Moon, I'm on book 4. That's going to be a 5-book series. So there's something to be said about having some longer series, but having like shorter series for people who just want to like hop in, read a couple books, and then not necessarily marry the series.
And yes, yes. Long series can be intimidating, and that goes for like TV shows. Like I'll admit, if their show's been on for like 15 years, it would be really hard for me to like jump into that. But when it comes to books, I guess depending on the author and everything, there are different tricks. And for instance, the Grishaverse, you have the trilogy, you have the duology, you have a standalone, and each of them and their bite size people can digest, or you could just read it all because it's in the same universe. So it depends on, I guess, how you cater it.
Yeah, and I mean even with the longer stuff, I try to have multiple entry points. Where people can jump in, and if they don't want to read what's come before, they'll be okay because a lot of it is explained,
Oh yeah, yeah, I
or,
like
or
that.
it's just not relevant.
It's true. I think right now I have a long series because it will be 16 total, but they're novellas, so they're shorter. But I also know that some people will be like 16 and will back away and, be a lot more reluctant to pick them up versus my 4-book series because that's a little more manageable. But to each their own. I like long series. I also like big books, so none of them intimidate me.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's plenty of people like that's another. I mean, that's another thing. Another bit of nonsense you hear. You're always going to find some author out there pontificating, like, "Oh, readers don't like long books." There are plenty of readers out there who love long books. Um, you know, if whatever you are writing out there, there's somebody out there who's going to want to read it.
hmm I mean, technically, the Lord of the Rings. Now, yeah, Lord of the Rings is one book, not three. It was just too big to print in one, so they broke it into three. The downside of long books is you do have a limitation on print.
Yes, and like there's 2 box series I would love to put into hardcover. They're not going to fit. My longest book, The Last Coven, which is about 200,000 words, it just barely fits in paperback and hardcover with like a readable font.
Wow. I love it. I do. I know some other author friends who have that kind of similar problem where they've had to adjust either the font just a little bit or the margins on the side so that it becomes printable size, because that is a thing. And
Yeah,
that was still great.
I'm friends with Drew Hayes, and he writes these like enormous sized tomes, and I've picked up some of his like hardcovers at like the book conventions, and it's like you need an electron microscope to read the font. But his fans just love what he writes so much they just want it as a keepsake. So
Hmm. Now, for all those readers out there, don't expect someone who writes that kind of book to put them out every month.
oh yeah.
So how now that you've worked on your process, and I know for me over the years, I figured out a great way of editing and publishing and kind of rotating things. So it looks like I'm turning books quicker than I actually am. But how long or do you have gap-wise between releases? If that makes sense.
So I'm going to tell. So 2023 has been a sucky year for motivation. I've been having been having a lot of trouble, like hitting my normal workflow this year.
Mhm.
I'm kind of like just at the tail end of the year, kind of hitting my stride. Under normal circumstances, I will typically put out maybe 3 novels a year with maybe a couple novellas like sprinkled
Very
in.
nice. Mhm.
And I mean, I find my editing cycle is a lot longer than my writing cycle in most cases. Getting to a first draft usually isn't that long of a process, but taking that first draft and making it polished and like up to the standards that I want to give to people, that takes a while.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing is authors should not rush their work even though readers demand it at times. Do what's right by your story by all means. And if that means, it takes you a year to put out a book, it takes you a year to put out a book. If you're one of those 1-monthers, God bless you. I could not figure that one out. But do whatever is right by your books. And also understand everybody's different, both writers and their methodologies and links of books, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. If you like an author and you like their works, then they're worth waiting for.
Exactly.
And all you're going to do is make yourself angry and make them angry if you're bothering them all the time, being like, well, it's been 12 days since your last release. It'd be really nice if we had another book.
Yes.
Like that's one thing that blows my mind, because I remember growing up, I read a lot of Stephen King. Stephen King would come out with 1 book a year, and that was considered to be pretty darn prolific.
Oh yeah.
But the thing was, like in my mind, it was like, all right, it's worth the wait. Is it killing me to wait for this book? Yes, but I know when it comes out, I'm going to be there buying it.
Yeah. No, and yes, I remember. Now it's aging me. Harry Potter books. They would come out one a year, one maybe 2 years, one maybe every 3 years, depending. I feel like there was that one gap with some of those, but we were all waiting for it. We love those books.
Yeah.
But so what is one book that you've waited the longest for, or you are very excited about waiting for? Maybe I should say that one.
I think a lot of us are still waiting for Winds of Winter.
I've heard that one by many, because yes.
I'm not really sure. I mean, I think I was there also with Harry Potter, waiting for the Deathly Hollows and stuff to to come out, and it seemed like it was forever, because at that point it was like I started that series later than a lot of people, but I started it maybe around book 5, so at that point it was like, all right, I'm 5 books in now. Now the wait begins.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, I mean, okay, so I used to be really big on Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child's Pendergrass series, and waiting for that used to be kind of hard.
Yeah, I see some comments from Sunny. Crescent City 3 is one that she's been waiting for. Hey, it's okay. We all have our limits where we can wait, and every reader would prefer books to come out quicker than they do.
Sometimes gaps happen. Yep. Devil Hunters, which is the second book of my Crypto Hunter series, it came out 5 years after the first one. And the reason for that is I was focusing on the Toma Bill series. It never felt like it was the right time to write that book. And I mean, it kind of became like, a joke that was like, oh, this is going to be my Duke Nukem Forever. But like, then when I started writing it, I was like, all right, yeah, it's my Duke Nukem Forever, except good. But eventually it got done.
Yeah. And books also have that kind of vibe of needing to be released at the right time too. So actually that's actually a good point, because sometimes it's just not right. It could be, the trends, the vibe, whatever. The author has 1,002 other projects that are taking, precedent. That's all fine.
Yeah, I mean, as I tell people, I'm like, what would you rather have? A book be fast or a book be good?
True.
Because
I prefer good.
I try not to give myself like fake, I guess, deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of those. I want to release a book when it's ready. So typically, I'll only put a book on pre-order if I'm absolutely 100% certain that I'm going to meet that pre-order date, which in most cases means I'm like done with everything with regards to editing it. I'm maybe just going through one more proofread or so.
Yeah. And that's, yes. And that is something that I think readers don't realize, or some readers may not realize, that you can technically put a book on pre-order before you even write it, because some authors will do that. And that amazes me and terrifies me, because the stress on my end on trying to meet those goals, and maybe you give yourself plenty of time, but I've done that. I have done the whole, not the put myself on pre-order before I wrote it, but put a book on pre-order because I was so confident it was going to be ready, and then there was some kind of glitch, and then I was running down to the wire to fix the glitch. I think it was like a formatting thing, if I remember correctly, and it was just a pure panic for the pre-week when I was supposed to have all the files ready. Woo! I was sweating bullets.
I mean, I've seen that happen. I've seen authors put a book on pre-release like a year in advance because Amazon allows you to do that, and then like that year passes and they screw it up. And I'm like, I don't want to do that to my readers.
Yeah.
I'd sooner tell them it's coming soon than give them a date and miss it. But two, you screw around with Amazon enough times, and well, that's not going to be good for your account.
That is true. They are sticklers for certain things, and I appreciate that. And then there are sticklers for things I also don't appreciate. But neither here nor there. Let me ask you, because we're talking about Amazon, so let me ask you, where can people find your books while I'm thinking about it? Like, are you exclusive to Zon? Are you wide? Do you sell direct? Where can people buy your wonderful books?
All right. So I do have a couple series that are with Kindle Unlimited, but the majority of my books I've been trying to push wide. Mm-hmm. So the vast majority of my books are available also on audio as well, and I've been pushing those wide as likewise. So pretty much you can find me on all the major platforms. You can also buy direct, which is, by the way, the best way to support an author, because you don't have other people reaching their fingers in the cookie jar and taking their share. So yes. Yeah, I sell direct from my website. Do I sell everything there? No, because it does make sense to me to keep certain things in Kindle Unlimited to keep a presence there. Like the False Icon series is Kindle Unlimited. Bill of the Dead is Kindle Unlimited. The Authors and Dragons Shingles series is Kindle Unlimited. But a lot of my stuff, as I said, I've been pushing it wide because I want to be wherever the readers are. Now, mind you, going wide can be interesting because there's a reason Amazon is the biggest shop, because they're the best shop.
Yeah.
As far as helping give you a chance to market yourself, the other sites in some ways kind of suck. But
no, yes, I agree. Is for the bookshops to date, Zon does pay the best, or has certain options that pay you far better than going wide, and so that is very appealing in many ways. I know this because I was exclusive for a long time. Now I'm kind of with you, where I'm starting to move everything. I meant to do this next year, not this year. I don't know what I was thinking. I had planned for this for 2024, take everything wide and learn that whole process, but ended up deciding I wanted to create a direct store. So kind of routed that way. So created the direct store on my website, and it'll be officially launching soon. and with the TikTok shop and all that kind of jazz, and then routing wide next year. So we shall see. So how is your experience doing the wide thing? Is it hard to do? This is someone who has no idea.
All right. So the truth of the matter is, yes, it's a lot more work, because when you're just on Amazon, all of your marketing can be focused on Amazon.
Yes.
When you're everywhere, you either have to target specific readers and say, okay, only target these Kobo readers, only target Barnes and Noble, or you have to give them the extra click, which can be a nightmare on the web, where you send them to a splash page and say, choose your store from there.
Choose wisely.
And neither is a great scenario.
But yeah, that's why I buy direct. Buy direct if you can. If you want to support an author, and most authors will sign the book for you if you're buying direct, depending on how they do it. And that's like, who doesn't want a signed copy, or a cute little book box that some people do, or whatever you have. Sorry.
You're exactly right. I mean, if somebody buys from me direct, they're getting my signature. I'm making it out to them. Heck, if they want a snarky response, all they got to do is ask for me. I'm happy to put that in there. Yeah.
I love that. Do you sell your ebooks wide right now, or direct?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's one thing. Is I was trying. It was a little bit. I messed up one thing, but for all but one book, was able to pull out a KU. So I'm now able to sell them directly through my shop. So that'll be a fun experience to see if anybody cares.
Well, okay. So selling audiobooks and ebooks direct, I got to be honest, that's my favorite, because once somebody buys it, the process is automatic. I don't really have to do anything.
That's true.
They buy it, they get the file, everybody's happy. When they buy the print book, don't get me wrong, I am ecstatic about that. But there's also the process of, okay, all right, sign it, put it in an envelope, put in the extras, run to the post office. There is extra work involved.
Oh yeah. As I was preparing, I have like boxes. My cute office originally that was like all decorated nice is now just weird contortions and stacks of boxes and bins of shipping boxes and packing tape and wrapping paper, and who knew all this stuff to sell a book. Now, hopefully people like what they get, but there's a lot of work on the front end to kind of build that out.
I'll be perfectly honest, I really don't. I respect like hell the concept that a lot of people put into like, their boxes being like,
some people go out there for it.
Yeah, some people are like, they go wild with that. I usually don't. Because I know when I open up something, unless it's like an iPhone box, which for some reason I inexplicably will hold on to until like 6 months later, and I'm like, why am I holding on to this stupid box? But typically, if I get something, I'm ripping it open. Mm-hmm. I love the stuff inside, whether you can pins, bookmarks, stuff like that. That's all great. But the box itself, the envelope itself, my main concern with that is it gets to you safely in one piece. I make sure in the inside it's like insulated in case like your mail person drops it in a puddle. That is my main goal, is to get it to you safely, not necessarily, give you, a cute box that you're then going to give to your cat.
No, and that's the point, is they're buying your book. But yeah, that is something that I'm doing like a base level with just enough. And then I have options for the wild boxes if people want it, but you have to pay more.
Like I have a ton of extras and stuff, both that I've done. For example, I did a comic book a couple years back. I'm on a podcast, and we've done a couple comic books. We've also done like signed postcards and stuff. So I have tons of extras I can put in to that. Just understand that the envelope it's coming in is going to be a little plain.
It's fine. It's fine. It's the book that counts. It's the book that counts. And what's inside the book that counts. So let me also ask, while I'm thinking about it, now, where can people find and follow you if they're interested in you? Obviously, you're on Book Talk, but where else can they find you? Website? Do you have, landing pages? Do you have other socials?
All right. So and assuming people can spell it, I am literally Rick Gualtieri everywhere. So I'm Rick Gualtieri here. I'm rickgualtieri.com is my website. On Facebook, there's a good and bad aspect to it. The bad is that getting people to spell it correctly, yes, that can be
I
a bit
have
of
one
a
of those
chore.
names too. So
Yeah. Usually I tell people if you want to really find me on the web, just Google Bill the Vampire. That'll bring you to me. Um, but there's a good and bad there. The good is that I don't really have to fight anybody. I don't really have to fight anybody else for like SEO and stuff.
hmm
You put in Rick Gualtieri to like, Google, all of my stuff is going to come up. It's not like my name is Jack Smith and you got to like,
that's true.
scroll through a million of that. So like I said, there's a good and bad aspect, but I try to make it a point everywhere on a social media. I pretty much have the same name.
No, and that's a smart thing to do, especially when you're like either of us, because both my first name is the most unusual way to spell Catherine, and my last name is Swedish. So there's an error going to happen some way, shape, or form. So I'm like, check the spelling very carefully. And emails, I always type out, make sure when you send me an email, use an AR, not an ER, and all this kind of how to find me.
Yeah, there is another person out there I occasionally fight with over the name. They're an oncologist named Richard Gualtieri, but they go with Richard, I go with Rick, and we tend not to overlap too much, which is good because I really don't want somebody desperately seeking an oncologist to find me by accident.
that would be actually kind of entertaining. Not good, but a little chuckle. That would be a little bit of a chuckle if you got an email, be like, I think you're looking for the wrong dude.
It's like, I really can't help you with chemo, but are you into Bigfoot?
I can make you smile. Oh, no, yeah, so far, I don't think there's another person with my name, which is cool. But again, it's complicated when people try to search for me and they don't know how to spell it. So I feel for you. I feel for you. I think you mentioned you have a website, you said?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And what I will do, crossing fingers, this platform has been very finicky on and off for the last few months. If it allows me to download this chat, I will repurpose this on YouTube and make sure I add all your contacts down below. If it doesn't, I will cry. But hopefully it does.
Yeah,
and then I'll make sure you have all that kind of contact so people can continue to find you going forward as well. But that's why I always want to ask when it's alive. Now,
and yeah, I understand the finickiness of this platform. Oh yes.
I think it's all plastic. Actually, I have like this bad juju when it comes to technology in general. It's weird. It's always been a thing. So it could be just me. It could be me for all I know.
Oh, no, I think I'm pretty sure it's not because I've noticed like when social media tends to start awesome, but then as it gets mature, it starts to suck. As they add more rules, as they start fixing things that aren't broken. I mean, these days, I mean, I used to love Facebook and Twitter. Those were my go-to places. Now Twitter is just a swamp, and Facebook.
I've never gotten that one.
Yeah, Facebook is just a mess, and
it is tough. It is tough as things evolve sometimes, or more often than not. They, like you said, certain rules become, almost like why would you do that? But we also need the socials right now, unfortunately or fortunately, to market our books, to be found by fellow readers. And I love finding readers, I will have to say. Any readers who like fantasy? My name is Katharine. So actually, that makes me think, have you or do you go to face-to-face events? So do you ever go to book festivals or conferences or do book signings at local bookstores, or do you do the face-to-face versus just all online? I know COVID's a thing on and off, so I will keep that in mind.
So I haven't done too many local events, and part of it is just like the conventions in New Jersey tend to be really expensive getting a table.
Yeah.
But I do love doing fan conventions. I find that that the area between like Virginia and Atlanta is great. There are so many wonderful conventions there. It's too far of a drive for me to do all of them, but I try to get down and do a couple a year. It's wonderful to meet people in person, to get to talk to them. I do what I can. In fact, one of the awesome parts about being so I'm on a podcast called Authors and Dragons, and all of us on there are authors. And for the last couple of years, we've been doing our own convention,
That's
which is
cool.
so rather than being like, say, guests at somebody else's convention, we've been doing our own, and it's been wildly successful. Uh, like, just in terms of getting such an engaged crowd there.
That is really neat. Now, where do you host that convention?
It's been a floating convention. So
Okay.
we've done East Coast, we've done middle of the country. Um, this past year, I wasn't able to attend, but this past year was in Portland, Oregon.
Fantastic. Now that's a bit of a travel though, but that is fantastic. And I know uh, floating conventions fascinate me. I have not attended one, but it's usually because I hear about it too late for the one that's near me, and then they jump across country, and I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah, like one thing I want to start doing more of locally is there's a lot of cryptid fests right over in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and I have several books devoted to cryptids. But I have that bad luck of I find out about it 3 days before it's going on, which of course is like there's not much you can do at that point. So then I try to get on their mailing list. But the problem is these cryptid fests, they pop up and then they disappear, and then like cryptids themselves.
That's funny actually. But I guess yeah, that's I am trying to be better and be more aware of bookish functions nearby so that eventually in theory I'll come up with a calendar saying, okay, if it's happening, it's usually around this time of year. So then that means, so many months prior I can check in and poke around. Right now I'm doing that for one festival that didn't happen last year but had been going on for like 20 some years, so I'm curious if they're going to do it for 2024, and so peeking and checking periodically, because if they do I would like to try it, and keeping a nice list of things going forward, my calendar of events.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I don't do a lot of conventions like author conventions
Hmm.
because I mean, ultimately, I'm friends with a lot of authors, which is wonderful, but ultimately I'm here for the readers, for the fans.
Hmm.
And if I'm gonna pay for a hotel room, if I'm gonna do that, that's my choice of who I want to hang out
That's
with.
true.
Now, the good thing is a lot of these conventions I will see my author friends at because they do them too. They make the circuits, which makes it doubly as awesome. Um, but yeah, just getting to to either shake the hand of an existing reader or to be able to meet a new reader, it's really hard to beat that.
Hmm. Now, I know every convention is very different. Do you ever dress up for your conventions? Because I love when authors dress up as their own characters, but I'm a person that I have bookish shirts for days, and so usually will see me in some kind of bookish shirt at one of
Oh,
those
not
things.
90% of my wardrobe are like my are shirts of my from my own my own series at this point. Um, do I do cosplay? Not really. I love Halloween. Don't get me wrong. I love dressing up. But typically, one reason I don't do it is that when I'm setting up behind a convention and like doing sales, I want to be comfortable doing it. And if I'm
Hmm.
dressed up in like various gear and other stuff, it
Hmm.
kind of takes away from my ability to focus on you know bringing people in. So
Okay, well, one of my bookish friends on here, Jason Doro, he always for everything is always some kind of sci-fi fantasy gaming t-shirt, and that's what he's known for. So he's like, this is my shtick, and it's comfortable, and it's me, it's my presence everywhere, and I like it. I was like, t-shirts are the way to go.
well, I gotta admit, as for any convention you go to, life is easiest when you're a guy writing urban fantasy because literally the the attire is pretty much dad bod attire. you know, T-shirt, cargo shorts, maybe maybe sandals and stuff. Um, it's I know my wife yelled at me the last one I went to. She was like, "Are you going to bring a dress shirt?" And I was like, "Why?" She was like, because you could try to look nice." I'm like, "Yeah, I could try."
Or I could be me and just be comfortable and in theme. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say the urban fantasy that makes total sense. I don't write urban, but that makes a lot more sense than something that's like high fantasy or second world, or I guess depending on your lit RPG, because you were talking about doing your serial release of your lit RPG for story book that I don't know what kind of what what is your lit RPG about? What kind of character, actually? Because I know that's a popular genre that's continuing to boom, actually.
So I noticed that a lot of the protagonists in lit RPG are like, are young, like, 20 something, dudes and stuff. So I went a little older. Um, my main protagonist, he's a 38-year-old software manager in way over his head. He's going through a divorce. Life sucks for him right now, and now he's like, and the whole premise is, and this is not a spoiler because it happens literally on the first page, is in coming back from his lawyer, getting bad news about his divorce, he looks up, he's not paying attention, and a bus hits him. Except it doesn't hit him. He pretty much gets dragged out of our world and to this other world where he's thrown into this competition to earn back his life.
That's so funny. There was someone, and I didn't check to see if this was really genre or someone joking, but was talking about the concept of a vehicle hitting you into another parallel reality. So there you go. That is so funny.
The point of this is like all of the other competitors are like him. They've all died what basically they're referring to as meaningless deaths in that they're deaths that didn't affect their timeline, pretty much didn't make a difference in the world. And they're giving these people a chance of like, you could compete on this game. If you lose, you go right back where we found you. Or if you win, you have a shot at avoiding your fate.
I like that. I do want to read some, because I haven't done that yet, and I now know a lot of people who write lit RPG. I do want to read a little bit about that, so if you have any recommendations. I know yours is on, you said, what was the platform? I have it at the tip of my tongue.
It's on Royal Road, and, well, cheap plug, it's also on my Patreon page.
And also, you can always talk about your Patreon. We're authors here. Use that hustle.
All right,
so what do you use your Patreon for?
Well, I mean, what I use my Patreon for is you can read ahead from if I'm posting free stuff on Royal Road, you get extra chapters on Patreon. If I'm releasing serialized books on Kindle Vella, you get them there as well. You get sneak peeks into what I do. You get like free merchandise. I try to. I know at one of the higher tiers, I basically am like, yeah, choose a book from my catalog, you get it for free signed, and I'll throw some other stuff in the box. So it's really just a way to connect with people, have them hopefully support me, and in return, give them as good of stuff as I can give them.
I love that. So how many hours a day do you write? Because you sound like you're working on 16 projects every time, every day, every moment.
Every day is different, and a lot of it depends on my motivation. I'm one of those people that if I don't start my day writing, it's very hard for me to like hop in later. So if after the kids go to school, I sit down and I can actually start writing, it'll be pretty much a full day. I'll write from like maybe 8 in the morning till about 11:30 until about 11:30. I'll take a break. I'll do a little bit of marketing. I'll come back after lunch and then I'll write till about maybe 5. But that's not every day. I mean, I wish that was every day. I'd have a lot more books out there, but some days I just can't find the motivation. So on those days, I'll work on marketing graphics. I'll work on some Facebook ads. As long I don't beat myself up. As long as my work day consists of moving my business forward in some way, I try not to beat myself up about it.
Yeah, no, and that's a good approach because I know some people overwhelm themselves, and you hear these stories on platforms like this that someone has overwhelmed themselves, tried to do too much, can't find the right balance, and it's stressful, and it puts a lot of weight on your shoulders, and everybody has to figure out what works best for them and give yourself allowances to take breaks, to pause, to be like, okay, today I didn't put any of the words on paper, and you know what? I'm going to survive.
And some people wear like this insane badge of honor. They'll be like, "Oh, well, I went on vacation with my family, and I wrote the entire time I was there." And it's like, that's not impressive. That's more pathetic. Work life balance applies to being a self-employed, author as well. I know on the weekends, for example, I will write on the weekends, but only if I have the time and the motivation to, which typically means I have nothing better going on. If I have something better going on, then I won't write on the weekends.
Yeah, I take the weekends off as well, just because I'm a person that has too many interests, and I want to be able to, be able to enjoy some other things. Not that I'm not also a workaholic. Like, if there's ever like a lull, I am on my phone checking marketing, answering emails. Like, I can definitely go into that dark hole of being a workaholic. But I also love what I do. So that's the thing, is like, if people were doing it in stress and felt like it's an obligation, then maybe you need to like slow down and take a break. But if you're doing it because you genuinely love doing it, that's okay. That's okay.
Exactly. Like people ask me, well, how do you find time for social media? And I'm like, I enjoy the social media. So literally, if I'm like watching TV and a thought pops into me, I'll toss it onto Twitter or I'll toss it onto Facebook or so. That's not really work. That's just that's more relaxing. I enjoy the videos I make on TikTok. I'm on this platform. Like, I started off on this platform because I wanted to get better at video, because that's always been kind of a weak point for me. But I've stuck on this platform because I'm having a lot of fun on this platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have probably the most fun on this platform. And there was that moment, that little bit of the hump to get over, to get used to seeing yourself and talking to yourself on screen. But after that, it is a lot of fun to create some content, and writing's fun. Yeah. Maybe not the editing, and the formatting is no.
I don't mind honestly, I don't mind formatting at all. I used to format by hand, which I come from a web background, and ebooks are literally just web pages.
That's
so
true.
They're never a problem. But these days, in these days of vellum,
Yes.
I love vellum. I mean, I never had a problem formatting my paperbacks, but vellum formats them a lot better than I used to do so.
And that's one thing, is I am looking into toward one of my goals for 2024 is trying to look into products like Atticus and Vellum, and trying to see which one I want to go with going forward, to try to again streamline some of these more tedious processes when you're trying to do it by hand. Yep. Or you could use a program that does it very nice. And you have all the extra perks of, I don't know if Atticus does it. I know Vellum does those pretty little inserts that a lot of people like. Not that I'll do it, but I might. It's nice to have that option.
Yeah, it's just nice to have that option. My goal with formatting is, some people will make a super pretty thing. Here's my thing. When you first get, say, a 4K TV or so, and you turn it on for the first time, it's the most beautiful thing on the planet. But watch TV for an hour, and now you're watching the show. Who cares if it's like 4K, HDR, all that stuff? And I take a similar stance with my ebooks and my print books. I want them to be well formatted. I want them to be legible. I want it to be a good experience. But I don't go out of my way to make them super fancy, because once you're in the story, I want you in the story. I don't want you to be distracted by by some weird font flourishes I'm doing and such.
No, very true. I like the idea of keeping that. No, this is personal. Personally, as an author side of things, not the reader, I like keeping that idea as like in the back pocket for like a really cool Kickstarter for a special limited edition release. Exactly. And if you want that and you want all the additives, then you can have it, but it's part of the special release. But yes, I do like the whole, in general, the more minimalistic interior, because I'm here to read. Yeah. But if I want something that it's a beautiful book with, with the foil or the whatnot, all the things that you want to look pretty on your bookshelf or pretty when, on a display, then go get the special edition. Exactly. And have it signed by the author.
my Kindle books, I use a free program that Amazon puts out called Kindle Create. And what it makes is competent looking ebooks that work across all of their devices. That's what I want for an ebook. I've picked up ebooks before where it's like, hey, this is a fancy font and you didn't bother to change the background, so now I can't read it because I read on night mode. That's not a great experience. When you pick up one of my books, are you going to be blown away because, oh, it's fancy and all these graphics and all these fonts and stuff? No. But you know what it is? You're going to be able to read it. It's going to work on whatever device you do. And hopefully in a few pages, you're so invested in the story that who cares about the rest?
Oh, yes. You want that hook, you want to get them invested, and you want them to, in, an hour, 2 hours, 5, whatever, or more, depending on how big your book, all of a sudden be like, oh, I finished the book. I didn't stop. That's the reader you want.
One thing I tell people is that, authors are, we are the cheapest travel agents you're going to find. And we're some of the best because we're going to take you to worlds that, nobody else is going to be able to fly you to.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I like that. Now I feel like I need a shirt. I'm trying to think of that. I love collecting book shirts of everything. And I don't know why I don't have one, because that is one of those popular concepts of how books are just gateways, portals to other worlds. And they take the reader to other places. Now, as we are rounding the hour, let me ask you, I'm so glad I figured out that the glitch earlier, and I'll try to eliminate that if I'm able to put that on YouTube, so it'll go straight into the talk, the one that I could hear. But let me ask you, is there any topic that you want to cover that we didn't? Is there questions that you had? I just want to make sure that you get what you wanted out of this hour and some change outside of my glitch, my fault.
I enjoy doing these because it's a chance for me to talk with typically other authors. So it's it's a little chance to connect, talk about the craft, because my wife is a flautist. She loves classical music. I don't like classical music. I like horror novels. She doesn't like horror novels. We, for the most part, when one of us starts talking in depth about what we do, the other's eyes tend to glaze over, and that's okay. So yeah, I've had a good time talking with you here.
Yeah, and writing is such a solitary thing, and I know a lot of writers do claim being introverts, but I always say I am an extreme extrovert, and so I can write all day. I can do my stuff behind the scenes, but it's really refreshing to talk to someone face to face or virtually who, again, knows the craft, gets the craft, understands the stuff, or sometimes I do these with fellow readers and just talks about books we enjoy and why we enjoy them, and it's nice.
Yeah, I mean it's like a chance to hang around that water cooler at work that we can't do otherwise.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, I love your display. I'm hoping before terribly long, our goal at 2022, or my husband and I, goal is to get a house so then I can have the cool bookshelves in the back and not my problem.
Actually, I think that looks great behind you.
Well, thank you. My little turtle peeking out behind. But and I will say,
one thing I will say is I love the color, the colors across the board with your covers. They really pop.
Thank you.
And I'm looking at it on a tiny screen, and they pop on that tiny screen.
Well, I do like the bright colors on certain themes, and again, fantasy is one of those things that bright colors can work very well with. And then, of course, my darker works ended up being, wow, I didn't really think about that. My darker works ended up being darker. I wonder if there was some kind of subconscious aesthetic going on right there. Who knew? But yes, I do like the little bright colors, and I like yours too a lot because each of them has the big color bold between the red and the blue, and I think that's like an orangey yellow back there. And again, those are the things that catch people's eye. But love it. Well, I will let you go, and thank you for putting up with my fumbling at the beginning of this. It has been a day. And thank you for I really genuinely thank you for putting up with all that, because I feel really bad. But if you ever want to do this again, hopefully far more smoothly, introduction-wise, let me know. I tried to do them weekly and schedule them in advance.
Oh, likewise. And I mean, I'm trying to get more into lives myself. I don't really have a set time yet. I kind of jump in when I have the moment. But yeah, if you ever see me doing one, just raise your hand and say hi. I'm more than happy to have you join me and such.
Perfect. Yeah, I need to get better back to my random lives. I was doing so well with them for the first half of the year, and then life. And then I haven't got back to that. So unless I schedule it, it hasn't really happened lately. But there are a lot of fun things, and they're a great way to meet other readers and talk to other authors, and it's just fun. Well, thank you for everybody who's been chiming in, popping in, hanging out with us this hour, and we will catch you anon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for having me on.